All right, everybody, welcome into episode 114 of the only Brazilian and American sports podcast that talks about sports on both American continents. It's two countries, two Americas, all sports. Recording here on January the 22nd, 2024, the first Monday night in America without football since before Labor Day. Kind of weird not coming home on a Monday night and then having some football, but hey, we are now transitioning back to close to the offseason, but not quite. I'm Nick Hilleb, as always, from a thawing out Chattanooga, Tennessee, of the United States. We are finally above freezing, boys and girls. Rejoice in the pseudo warmth and baking in the actual warmth. Down in summertime in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gustavo Tomazeli. Gus, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, great. Yeah, that's true. It's not been as hot as was last week, but still summertime. There was a lot of rain last week, but now we kind of, may a little bit of coolish weather. But yeah, I'm wearing my Rio
Nothing
Branco.
like me. That's for sure. Nothing like me
No,
frolicking
no.
around in the ice and snow.
Actually, my students asked if you had to cover more snow today because you know, last week you had to uh, talk to my English students about you covering the snow, and they were impressed. And I told them like, no, no, no. This week Nick is free of snow.
Yes, that is correct. That is a very. I hope they understand that's rare for my part of the world here in the United States. But I'm glad that I'm literally entertaining. I could just tell they were fascinated by the snow. Me standing out there, frolicking around, and it was quite the time. But we're now getting back to normal here in Tennessee, which is very much a good thing. Also, that shirt. Shout out to Rio Bronco. Represented that on News 12 Team Spirit Friday. Uh,
Yeah, that we're definitely gonna talk about Rio Branco later in the show, but that was something we felt proud. Even Rio Branco president was very happy about it.
Yeah, bringing the Rio Bronco all the way to Chattanooga, Tennessee. But that is the beauty of this podcast. But a topic that I think interests both of us as journalists and as people who work in public relations and just has a deep, tie to sports journalism. Sports Illustrated. Granted, I'll be very honest, I've never been an avid reader of Sports Illustrated. I kind of grew up in a time after print media being super important in sports journalism. And I think that's part of the reason why we have seen the death of Sports Illustrated. They announced last week that they are laying off every single employee at Sports Illustrated. So basically, that print magazine, the bikini or swimsuit edition, rather, all the iconic sports covers over the years are done. And it begs the question: is just are magazines like that dead? I mean, I know we have like the Athletic, which is an online only magazine, but like how many people actually pay for that? Like I don't pay for the Athletic. Like why do I need to pay some guy to give me his sports takes when I can go to guys like Urinating Tree for free on YouTube? Like
Yeah,
that is the ultimate problem.
no, and I'm gonna go deeper into that. I think is somehow domino effect. I feel like we talked even we started the show like about, and I begged the question I put on our um, in our liner: is print media death upon us? Because that's what I debate here with my fellow journalists in Brazil, especially in the city of Americana, which is a relatively mid-sized city. Like it's literally the same size of Chattanooga. And here, print media has a really big part of because literally the newspaper Liberal is the only media outlet in the city of Americana who makes a deep coverage into everything Americana and the cities around related, like police stories, especially city council, mayor, kind of like the city of Americana. If there's a problem with the sewage department, with the education department, even the place that I work, Rio Branco. Still, kind of, is covered by print media. And but the liberal media group is shrinking every day. And I talk to my colleagues, and I have some colleagues that work there, and they tell me that the demand of work is increasing, and the people working there is getting fewer and fewer every day. And I think what Sports Illustrated just did is just they couldn't sustain the model anymore and just completely shut off, because at the end of the day, it's just you know probably print media was the only one who couldn't find a way to make their business sustainable. Because like it's so crazy, like think about it, 30 years ago print media was in terms of business side was the king, because they had two great revenue models: the advertisement revenue, the subscription revenue, and even when people went to the newsstands and bought those, all those three were gone. Nobody goes to the newsstands to buy the Sports Illustrated to know what's happening in the world. They can go to their to Google and type their team. They go, they find any like bloggers and online. You mentioned great YouTubers like Urinary Tree and advertisers. They don't want to go to a media there's limited. There's like they want they want their clients to see their product with video. So unfortunately, even though print media produced, I guess, the most deeper coverage, the most like, insightful coverage, is the business model is just not sustainable anymore.
Yeah, I think just people, they want to see, they want to hear what's going on. They don't want to necessarily read it, and reading is important. But I think people are more selective about exactly what they're reading. If they can see or hear it, they'll choose that instead over just reading. Right? Like, look at the story I covered today. It's a court hearing, very emotional um, testimony from family of a victim in a case that I covered today. And you just don't get the same impact reading it as you do watching it. And I think when it comes to news, and I think when it comes to sports, people want to see and they want to hear it. And I just wonder if the model itself is dead to an extent, because people, maybe they have shrinking attention spans. They're not going to buy a whole newspaper and sit down and read it all.
Yeah, and the people who are, for example, I don't know if um, your grandparents have this kind of habit. My grandma still does, which is be a newspaper subscriber and get the newspaper delivered. But even my grandma's questioning if she is going to continue be the liberal newspaper subscriber, because she thinks, oh, I can just watch TV, get all the news that I need, and is in on my TV and internet, cable package, and just completely cancel my subscription, save money. I
Yeah, I
understand
mean, my
her.
grandmother doesn't have one, I believe. She does not get the Times Free Press.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, see, even like, because the target audience today, I frequently talk to my friends about it here in Americana, uh, is old people. I mean, is the older demographic. I think is like late 40s to mid 80s is the people who still support print media, mostly newspaper, but also magazines. But you know, even those kind of demographic in the United States are getting more access to online devices. So at the end of the day, unfortunately, SI is going to be the first domino. I think the rest is going to fall. And what I'm worried about is local newspapers, like the one that you just mentioned, and the one that I mentioned, like the Chattanooga Free Time Press, right?
Times Free Press.
Times Free Press and Liberal, and they do a tremendous job in coverage, local news, city council, but unfortunately, the people they probably even in the United States even more with TV local news uh, being even more in deep. I guess the model is just unfortunately not sustainable anymore.
Yeah, and people, with inflation, they're being more picky with what they're going to pay for, and Newspapers often are just not that thing if you can get that same information in other places. So it's unfortunate, and I hate that for them. And of course, there's actually some people who are running around saying, "Oh, the reason why it happens because Sport Illustrated went woke. They put trans people on their swimsuit edition and stuff like that." But like, I think by the time all that even happened, no one was even paying attention to it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think definitely with those kind of, you know, especially opinionated uh, hosts, they want to find stories that would broad their narrative.
Yeah.
So, a story like that would say, oh, that narrative fits what I want to say, which is go woke, go broke. But, I'm not saying that didn't take part of it, but that was not the full reason for it.
Yeah, I mean, the go what go broke crowd is a very interesting crowd to say the least. It's curious to tune back in every week and see what they're mad at this week. There's a certain tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs that they've been hating on all year uh, for various reasons, but you know, it's neither here or there. But I mean, these people, it's crazy the links they will go to hate on things, and for a political agenda.
Yeah, definitely. And at the end of the day, it's kind of, you know, pursue narratives that people trying to find stories. But just to wrap up, I think this topic is I feel sad for the people who are laid off from Sports Illustrated because, as we both really know, the sports journalism market is a very narrow, very competitive, very limited market. So when a publication like that bankrupt, go out of business, and people are laid off, is if more competent, good sports journalists in the market trying to find a place for them.
Right.
And
And I
the
think too,
NFL,
well, when
go
it comes
ahead.
to sports journalism, is you have to really go to the niche. Like you don't have to sit back and watch Sports Center and read Sports Illustrated because that's just general. We're going to talk about the Yankees. We're going to talk about the Red Sox and stuff like that. No, if you like the Detroit Tigers, there are tons of content creators online you can subscribe to and follow exclusively to understand what's going on with that team or with the Columbus Blue Jackets or
Or
the
even Real Bronco. Like, for example, back when I used to be at a radio station, not at Real Bronco PR, I used to host Facebook Live in a Real Bronco Facebook page with other colleagues that watch and cover Real Bronco, and we got somehow a decent audience. It's not a big, 10,000 simultaneous views, but we're like 30 simultaneous views. Like at some point, we got like 70 views simultaneously, which is an accomplishment. Being that Rio Bronco is a small city and it's in a lower division, but that gets to your point. Like today, people like you know websites, blogs, YouTube, Facebook pages dedicated to their clubs.
yeah, I mean it's like that in every modicum of entertainment. Like I mean shows. Like I don't know what the number one show is on Netflix right now, but there are certain shows I like to watch that maybe are not the most popular. Music, like I don't know what the number one song is right now, but but I don't need to go listen to the top 40 hit radio station to like hear new music. I can just go through Spotify, go for their algorithm, and find all the indie and not find all the underground hip hop that I want. I mean, it's like that in every sport. That these large tenant pole um, conglomerates like Sport Illustrated are just a thing of the past because people are no longer subjected to being one of the masses. You can be a true individual in this economy by curating your entertainment experience.
Yeah, and this is everywhere. In Brazil and United States, it's kind of like in Brazil. That's why there's going to be an NFL game in September. Is people being so consuming content that are online that they get so invested in sports they don't even have a chance to watch in person, like the NFL in Brazil, but they have a chance to consume through those new medias that we talk about. So at the end of the day, Sports Illustrator is going to be just memorabilia in old people's houses, or even pawn shops. They're like, oh, this historic edition or something like that. But it's
Yeah,
going to
the
be
covers were
uh,
the best part for sure.
the what?
The covers were the best part for
Oh
sure.
yeah, those are gonna be in our memories, and but at the end of the day, uh, that's why I tell people that's why radio it's impressive, because radio is the oldest one of the with print media. Both were founded kind of hand in hand, back in the 1890s, 1900s. But one is dying off and the other one is still going strong. Not probably as strong as it was like 20 or 30 years ago, but at least as I can see in Brazil, it's still more people invested in, listen on the radio and or even consume radio content than print content.
Because the key is podcasts are more easily accessible than blogs. So like
Yes.
radio can naturally migrate over to being podcasts. Like what I mean, we're doing basically just a radio show right now.
Yeah.
What we're
Yeah.
doing, but even though we're not technically on any radio frequency, uh, but this is the modern version of just an old school radio broadcast. We're
Yeah.
doing nothing different than two guys in the 1950s.
Yeah.
We're just talking into microphones about whatever topic we're talking about. But the difference is it's technically just under a new name. It's a lot harder to monetize that in the print media world.
Yeah, that's true. And I just wish good luck for the people who are laid off at SI, and good, and for the you know wish good luck for the people who are laid off. And it was a historical part of American news, sports news media, but it's now a thing of the past.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but things
Yeah,
happen
it's
and
kind of
things
it's kind of like
change.
happened. It kind of similar way to happen to the magazine here in Brazil, Placar. When I grew up, I remember buying some editions because I wanted to see, like what's going to be the best soccer team in Brazil this season, or see a piece about some player. But now I don't have to buy the magazine. I can go online and read tons of online articles from Brazilian sports websites to see it. So that's in the same kind of fate that happened to SI happened to Placar.
Absolutely, and I'm sure this will not be the last time we talk about a dying media brand. But speaking of a dying brand here, let's get into the NFL playoffs. The NFL themselves are not dying, but the first thing we got to talk about, oof, another just heartbreak. I mean, is there any NFL franchise as cursed as the Buffalo Bills? I mean,
Not that I can
every
think
single
of.
postseason, every single postseason is just brutal loss after brutal loss. I think about the last 3 years for Buffalo. 2021, lose one of the greatest games ever played in Arrowhead because Patrick Mahomes goes down in 13 seconds to tie it up and then gets the ball back first and goes back down and wins. Last year, you have a horrific injury to Damar Hamlin. Almost lose him just as a person. He almost died. And then you rally back from that. You get to the semis against the same team that you almost lost your teammate to and get curb stomped at home. And now this year you start 6-6. And like this is going to be a lost season, but you go on a run, come back, steal the division away from Miami, get through a weird snowstorm last week, beat Pittsburgh, And then you get that team that has nagged you for years, the Kansas City Chiefs, that you've owned them in the regular season. You're undefeated against them in the regular season. But when is against them and against the postseason? And you had the crowd behind you. This was Patrick Mahomes' first start on the road. And everything that could go wrong in that fourth quarter did for the Buffalo Bills. It's mind-boggling to think about how this unfolded for Buffalo. For the first three quarters, this was a back and forth. Offenses were on fire. Travis Kelce looked like he figured it out again. Of course, Taylor Swift with his brother and probably now retired Jason Kelce. Even though we said last week he was fully retired, Jason Kelce came back out on the Kelce Brothers podcast and said, well, I haven't fully announced it, but I'm pretty sure he's still retired. He looked like a guy who was going to retire. But in any case, he's hanging out now with Taylor Swift, so I'm sure he's having one heck of a time.
I'll tell you something, Nick. I saw a video. I think it was him jumping, going from his luxury box to the fans, like with Chiefs gear, celebrating. Americans are too polite. In Brazil, he would have got his A beat.
Well, that's just is what it is. That's what we are okay with that here. But okay, so let's go through the fourth quarter sequence here. So first and foremost, the Bills go 3 and out, and then the Bills see that the Chiefs only have 10 players on the field. Complete blunder by Kansas City. So they direct snap it to no one else but DeMar Hamlin at their own 32-yard line with still 12 minutes to go, and he gets stopped. So the Chiefs get the ball back, and they're about to score a touchdown. And as McCole Hardman is heading into the end zone, he fumbles it out of the back of the end zone. And I must say this, and when Gus comes back, I'll have to bring him on this discussion. People complaining about the fumbling out of the back of the end zone rule make no sense. I don't know what else you could possibly want to happen in that scenario. You can't give a touchdown in that scenario. You didn't cross the plane. You want them to go back to the line where maybe you could go back to where the play started or where the fumble occurred, but that's not rewarding the defense. If you fumble, the defense should be rewarded in some sense, right? Now I know, if you fumble it in the field of play and it goes out of bounds, the offense retains possession, but you get the ball back at where the ball went out of bounds. In this scenario, you can't give the offense the ball inside of the end zone because that's a touchdown automatically. Gus, I don't know if you saw this kind of debate over the fumble yesterday for the Chiefs game, but basically people think the touchback rule is stupid, and I don't understand why, because I don't know what else you want the outcome to be of the offense fumbling the ball through the back of the end zone.
I think it's such a backwards rule. I think there's still in college football.
How is it backwards?
Because at the end of the day, you punish because if why when you're in offense and you lose the ball, there's a difference. You lose the ball on a 1 yard line, or you lose on the you lose the ball in the end zone. I think it doesn't make sense, in my opinion.
I mean, I don't know what else you could want. Do you want the ball to go back to where it was?
Go to the 1 yard line.
I just can't agree with that. I think, if you fumble the ball as you're going for a touchdown out the back of the end zone, there should be a punishment for that. Because at that part of the field, you have to take extra care of the football. It's a special part of the field. Otherwise, you're devaluing that part of the field by taking away that rule. Because, yes, that's a touchdown, and that will still be a touchdown. But if you take away the touchback rule, you're taking away the risk of going for that area.
But I think the NFL is moving towards making the game pro offense, and I guess that's still one of those rules that really benefits the defense.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it does benefit the defense, but on every other fumble that goes out of bounds in the field of play, it's either just offensive possession where the ball goes out, or if it goes out the other end zone, it's a safety. And I don't hear anyone complaining about that. You know, so anyway, I don't think offenses should get to benefit from a fumble. I mean, that's my piece on it, because a fumble is a bad thing. You don't want to fumble the football. In any case, Buffalo gets the ball back and they went 3-and-out. And on the 3rd and 12, they threw a deep shot. Josh Allen just threw a rocket to Sherfield, but what became a pretty common sight in this fourth quarter, the Bills receivers let down Josh Allen. That was a drop. However, Buffalo gets the ball back, and they start moving the ball down the field. They start burning a lot of clock, and they are moving the ball. They are running it pretty well. They got some passes, but they really are running the ball well. Like James Cook with 242 has is rushing the ball, and they get to the 2-minute warning. And this is where Buffalo makes their grave error, their grave mistake. At the 26-yard line, Casey at this point had 2 timeouts. You run the ball, you force them to take timeouts, and then you kick. No. They decide to come out and throw it on 2nd and 3rd down after the 2-minute warning. And both times they go deep to the end zone and it's incomplete, despite there being open receivers underneath. The Bills did not need to go for a touchdown either time. And instead, they waste no time, and they got no closer for Tyler Bass, their field goal kicker, who missed the 43-yard field goal, and Kansas City wins. I'll say this. This is part play calling, because the Bills needed to prioritize time and just getting any yardage they could in that situation. But this is also on Josh Allen. Josh Allen was going for glory on that final drive, and in the sake of efficiency. And this has always been the problem with Josh Allen. Yes, he can make flashy plays. Yes, he can make throws no one else can in the NFL. But he forgets that most of what you're doing as a quarterback is routine throws. And he often doesn't make the smart decision. He didn't have any interceptions yesterday, which has been a huge problem for him all year. But he really cost his team at the end. And once again, this is how Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs punked the Bills. And this time, for Josh Allen, it came in Orchard Park. And that, to me, is a legacy-defining loss.
Do you know this game reminds me of?
What?
Like this, or maybe even this Kansas City Chiefs team remind me of Alabama this year. Both were not the flashy, superpower team they were 3-4 years ago, but they had a great coach, a legendary coach, and great offensive pieces that somehow they were able to get to the semifinals. Alabama made it to the college football playoffs, and the Kansas City Chiefs are once again in the AFC Championship. But I think both are gonna get one already. One was already demolished, and the other one I think is gonna get beat up by the Harbour brothers. I think Jim
Well,
Harbour.
I wouldn't say Bama got demolished. I mean, they
Not
went to
demolished. I would say
overtime.
that both were defeated. I think both are gonna get defeated. One already
And the other
got.
parallel, too, is Alabama beat Georgia 27-24 in the proverbial quarterfinal match. Like
Yeah,
Kansas City beat Buffalo 27-24.
yeah. See.
I mean, yeah, there is a point there to be had. Yeah, and of course I'll talk about KC and Baltimore a little bit later, but I want to focus on Buffalo first. I don't think it's ever going to happen for Josh Allen and this current core.
You think it's gonna be kind of like a Dan Marino?
Yeah, I mean this is honestly it's kind of a Dan Marino, kind of a Phillip Rivers. Like if they couldn't get it done now, if they can't beat Kansas City now, I don't know when they're ever going to. Because when else are you going to get them at home? Probably if you face them again, you're going to have to go back to Arrowhead. And it's just you had you had them on multiple occasions in this game and just couldn't get it done. I mean, this was just a case of a Chiefs team that was confident, like, okay, we've been here for the last 6 years. We're going to win this game. We're just going to find a way to win this game. And the Bills went into this game with the idea of, okay, we're going to pull this off. We're going to finally beat Casey. And then when it got tight, like, oh, God, I can't make the mistake. And they all started making mistakes. And that's the difference between a championship level program and a pretender. And the Buffalo Bills are pretenders.
But do you know what keeps Buffalo Bills still viable? Their the division. I think the AFC East still gives Buffalo the opportunity to come back to the playoffs, I guess, next year because the New England Patriots are still going to be in rebuilding mode. I don't trust Jared Mayo, even though he's a VFL, to revamp the franchise in year one. The Jets are unknown if Aaron Rodgers is going to come back or not. If he comes back, what version of Aaron Rodgers is going to come back? And Miami, they're a good team, but they asked that the same fate happened to them when they faced Buffalo. They could have win, had a home field advantage, and they blew it. So I guess Miami is even a worse version of the Buffalo syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the AFC East is relatively weak, so they can continue winning it, but it doesn't mean anything if you can't do it in January. And I just don't see any way they're going to be able to do it in January. And the thing about it is their cap is going to continue to get further and further hit because you're going to see what happened a lot to KC to happen to Buffalo because KC doesn't have as much money to pay everyone else because of what they've had to pay Patrick Mahomes. But Patrick Mahomes has proven he can win Super Bowls. Josh Allen has not. Josh Allen is not on the top tier quarterback. And this game just throws him into why. And this game went exactly the way I told you it would last week. It's going to get tight, and Buffalo is going to get scared, and they're going to choke. And that's exactly what happened. And I hate it for the Bills Mafia because I know they're passionate. I know they want to see their Bills win a Super Bowl so bad. But it just wasn't meant to happen on this one for the Bills. So the Chiefs will take on the number 1 seed Ravens, who cruised through the Houston Texans. And really, I think the story here is the defense. I mean, we've been on, last week raving about C.J. Stroud, how good the Texans' offense has been this season. And the Ravens, the only touchdown they let up in this game was a punt return. And C.J. Stroud was very average in this game, only threw 175 yards. They couldn't run the ball, only 38 rushing yards for the Houston Texans. And yeah, this was just total dominance. Lamar Jackson, 152 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, and just another 100 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns there, 229 yards rushing for Baltimore. They played their style of game. Defense, we want to run, take some shots with Lamar Jackson passing the ball in addition to his running ability. Pretty much the ideal Baltimore Ravens game. And Baltimore, I think, is definitely in a place where they can challenge KC. First and foremost, so Houston, I mean, there's certainly nothing to be ashamed of for them. I mean, they're young. They weren't supposed to be here. No one thought Houston would be in the divisional round this year. I think they need to focus on I think, one, obviously continuing to improve the offensive line. I think that's a good starting point. I like their skill players. I like, obviously, Stroud. And defensively, you're just going to want to continue to find pieces in all levels because, you want better secondary players. You want better pieces in the linebacker position. You got some good pieces up front with guys like Will Anderson.
I mean, for a Houston Texans fan right now, is probably the most up. It should be the most optimistic fan because you're still year one of the rookie contract of CJ Stroud, which show great potential. A rookie head coach who went all the way to the divisional round. So I only see this team improving. I just see a upwards trajectory for the Houston Texans. But now they have to get this opportunity that the CJ Stroud on a rookie contract and get every piece offensively and defensively they can get.
Absolutely. There's a lot of plays they could continue to improve on, but they have done an excellent job positioning themselves so far. And it'll be an interesting battle in the AFC South next year. Jacksonville, we'll see if they're able to bounce back for the disaster they were. Indianapolis, we still have to see what happens with AR. And as we'll talk a little bit, the Titans just got a new coach, so we'll see what happens with them here in a little bit. But I would like to talk about the AFC Championship game. Actually, no, actually, I don't want to yet. We're going to talk about the NFC games first.
Yeah, and also probably we can go deeper next week because oh no, the Super Bowl has the week difference, right? I forgot about it.
Oh, absolutely. So over in the NFC side, I feel like these were chalk for both of them, but they were kind of interesting games. The Niners, I felt like there for a minute they were gonna blow it to Green Bay.
It really felt like it. Their defense were all over the place. The Green Bay San Francisco was the only game I watched, and wow, if Houston fans are excited, Green Bay fans were like ecstatic. They have some injuries that derail their success because you know this young Green Bay team really gave a hard time to San Francisco.
Oh, they very much did. And I think a lot of it was on San Francisco. I think Kyle Shanahan, if they had lost that game, Shanahan should have been fired. Some of the play calling was just abysmal. Like after Deebo Samuel gets hurt, why are you handing off the ball to Jawan Jennings? So I love Jawan Jennings, but he's not a running back. You have Christian McCaffrey. Like, why is any handoff going to anyone not named CMC? It makes zero sense. And then Brock Purdy, I'm just going to be honest, I don't think Brock Purdy was very good on Saturday night. And I don't think he's been that good for like a month now. Going back to Christmas Day, he wasn't really that great in the game, succeeding that. And I don't really trust Purdy right now to really take advantage of all the weapons that he has. And I just wonder if we're starting to see the limitations that Purdy has, considering that he was a 7th round pick. And, a lot of people thinking, oh, is he the next Brady in terms of a late round pick?
Is Brock Purdy more of a story than a reality still? Like, because at some point you have to go from novelty to reality. Like, Brady did that really fast. Like, nobody was like, oh, how cute of a story. He was found at 6th round. He was like, whoa, this dude can play. And this dude is going to carry a team to, legendary run. But, and maybe he's going to get a break. Like, Tom Brady need a break in that infamous divisional round game against Oakland in the tuck rule. But, maybe that will be the key moment. Like, and probably this weekend is going to be probably the defining moment for Brock Purdy. This is it for him, I feel like.
Oh, I would agree with that. If he doesn't get it done against Detroit, serious questions should be had on whether or not he's actually the guy long term. I already have serious questions about him being the guy long term. But at least for San Francisco, you still have Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle. You may have Deebo Samuel. He's 50-50. He's going to try to play with that injury. But for Green Bay, though, I don't think there's anything to be ashamed of. Defensively, I still think they are a couple pieces away from truly being contenders. But overall, obviously they had a great end of the season. They're a really fun team to watch. I love watching Jordan Love play a quarterback. And I think they'll only get better as they get older. I think they need to figure out what they're going to do at running back. Aaron Jones is getting older. AJ Dillon isn't going to be that piece anymore for them. I think they're going to need to figure out something in the draft. Honestly, one guy I think that would be great there, Jalen Wright from Tennessee. I could see that being a potential landing spot for him in like the second, third, fourth round. Because I think Jalen Wright, who was great in Tennessee's offense this year, would be phenomenal with Jordan Love. So that's just my suggestion to Green Bay. But I think the future is bright as they truly have a quarterback in Jordan Love. The last NFL game that occurred was Sunday afternoon in Detroit. As Baker Mayfield took the Tampa Bay Buccaneers into Detroit. And this was a really good game. A really good game. It was tied early in the fourth quarter, but shout out to the Lions. They have advanced to their first conference championship game since 1991, which is crazy to think about. Most people who watch NFL Downton weren't even alive to see it. And it just goes to show what attitude means.
And what's crazy is this the year for break curses in the state of Michigan football. I mean, the University of Michigan already done it.
Oh, yeah. Imagine being a Lions and Michigan's fan this year. I mean, this has to be like the greatest. I mean, it's like late 90s in Tennessee.
Yeah.
With the Vols and the Titans. But, yeah, but Jared Goff played phenomenal. Basically played perfect in this game. Jahmyr Gibbs had some big plays in this game. There's a moment I say Brown did what he normally did. But really, the defense came up big late in this game. Got a crucial interception off of Baker Mayfield on the last big possession. And I'll say this. Baker Mayfield overall played pretty well. There's some questions about Tampa. Now, first and foremost, should Baker Mayfield be back next year as a quarterback in Tampa? I say yes. I think he exceeded expectations. He deserves to be a starting quarterback in the league. And I don't know who else you would get.
Yeah, I think Tampa is on a pickle right now. First of all, Todd Bowles, I think he's better coordinator than a coach. I think he'll be a tremendous defensive coordinator, but as a head coach, I just don't see it. I think Tampa needs to move on.
Oh my God, there was some crazy. So, okay, we need to talk about the going for two down 8. So, Tampa was down 31-17. They get it to 31-23 on a touchdown. They go for 2 and don't get it. Now, there's a lot of argument about this topic today. Should you go for 2 in this situation? Because if you get it, it's a 6-point game. And then if you get another touchdown and kick the extra point, you win. The Titans beat the Dolphins on this exact situation a couple of weeks ago. Because basically the idea is you're more likely than not to make one of two 2-point conversions. And if you make the first one, you give yourself a chance to win in regulation. That's the idea. Because basically, you have a 55% chance of scoring on a 2-point conversion, on any 2-point conversion, and you have a 95% chance to score an extra point. So analytically, some people make the argument it makes sense from the numbers to go for 2 down 8. But it feels like it defeats all common sense. And you look stupid when it fails.
Yeah, I'm to the argument that you should take risks. I think it's better to take a risk when you have the clock not under your throat. Because imagine if it's hard to go for 2 when you're down, down 8, but with like 3 minutes on the clock. Like you should go for 2 because it's not a do or die play. Uh, because if you get it, then will makes your next offensive play more. You score a touchdown, you basically win. But but it's the opposite. Like you go conservative, go for extra point, then you need to go for two in the next play when the clock is really, really probably close to zero.
Wait, well, okay, so if you go for extra point the first time to make it, let's say 31-24, you don't need to go kick it. You don't need to go for two the second time. You can just kick it and send it to OT.
Yeah,
But I guess
yeah,
the question is, then you're letting your fate just basically the whole idea is you're just taking the fate outside of the coin toss. You're going to be the coin toss.
yeah.
And maybe call a better play than goal line fade if you're going to go for two. That's just my suggestion for Tampa. Next time we try it. And also, don't go home with a timeout. Okay, so the Lions kind of screwed up. So they get an interception with I believe it was 150 left in the clock, if I'm not mistaken. 135. And for some reason, the Lions, so their first kneel is at 133. Remember, you have 40-second clocks, 40-second play clocks. Their next knee is at 106. That's only 27 seconds. And then they kneel again on third down at 34 seconds. So they only used so that's another 34, that's another 28. So they failed to use about 25 seconds off the clock. And what was crazy, they had 34 seconds when they kneeled the last time. Tampa had a timeout. They had a timeout that was gifted back to them in a penalty situation. And I don't know if Todd Bowles realized he had a timeout. Because it was fourth down, they could have called a timeout and forced Detroit to try for a 48-yard field goal, which is not a guarantee. Now, he likely makes it, but what if he misses it? What if you block it? Then all of a sudden, you have a chance to pull off a miracle. I don't know if they just decided, okay, we're not going to call it for sportsmanship reasons, but this is the playoffs. Screw sportsmanship. You're trying to win. You're trying to go to the Super Bowl. You're trying to go to the NFC Championship game. There's no good explanation for why Todd Bowles didn't take a timeout at the end of that game. With 34 seconds, he had a timeout, call the timeout, make them kick a field goal. Because you can't take a knee at 34 seconds.
It's such a defeat mentality. And again, that's why, unfortunately, he is probably not as good of a head coach that he can be a coordinator. Another example.
Yeah, of course, the Buccaneers coach gives a bizarre explanation for baffling decision not to use timeout. So Bowles said they already had a field goal lined up, and it would have been about 12 seconds on the clock to end the ball game. We weren't going to come back from that, Bowles told the media. No sense in prolonging the obvious. Well, what's obvious? Even if it's a 2% chance, you win. You owe it to your team and your players that have sacrificed all year to give them a shot. You go out there to your field goal unit. I don't care if you run into the damn kicker and get a 15-yard penalty. You go for that block. If I were a Bucs fan, I'd want him fired today. Because that's that's a Butch Jones level mistake.
Whoa.
That's something Butch would do.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He can be a good coordinator, but probably head coach. Tampa should think other options.
Yeah. So, in any case, we have 4 teams left. Detroit, San Francisco, Kansas City, and Baltimore. They are the 4 vying for the Lombardi Trophy. So, let's talk about these championship games. There's Championship Sunday coming up this weekend. First, we go to Santa Clara, the Detroit Lions. 6.5-point underdogs. Who would have thought the Lions, for years, the toilet of the NFL, the proverbial basement, they went 0-16 in 2008. Total joke and laughing stock of a franchise. Um, they are a game away from their first ever Super Bowl. But they got to go to the mighty Goliath San Francisco 49ers, who at times this year, I think people would have argued, including myself, were the best team in the NFL. Um, true, just they are true underdogs. What does Detroit have to do? And I talked about my concerns about Shanahan and Purdy, because I think Shanahan, in the playoffs, has had a history of awful play calling. Brock Purdy, I'm not convinced is an elite quarterback. On the other sideline, you got Jared Goff, who I think is playing well. What does Detroit have to do?
Probably what Detroit needs to do is to look at what Green Bay did, which is force the ball down and make deeper throws. Jordan Love had a field day, and hope and if I'm Dan Campbell, I'm praying that Kyle Shanahan keep the same mentality and kind of ignores Christian McCaffrey, because when he's not ignored, he's a beast.
Yeah, and for Christian, I think for Kyle Shanahan, that's the goal. You have to get the ball to Christian McCaffrey. There's no if, and, buts, or excuses. That's the way to really start exploiting this Detroit defense, is by using Christian McCaffrey. But I think if you're Detroit, you got to get out early. You got to jump on San Francisco. Maybe get a turnover early. Make Brock Purdy nervous. Make Kyle Shanahan nervous, because Shanahan has a tendency sometimes to completely abandon the run when he gets down. And when that happens, San Francisco's in trouble. This happened on Christmas night against Baltimore. When they got down by 2 possessions early, they abandoned the run, and Brock Purdy just was a deer in headlights that entire game. Detroit's got to find a way to do it, because Detroit is a good turnover defense. They are good at getting after the quarterback. They can find a way to do this. And for Jared Goff, find a way to take care of the ball like you have been. Try to get the run game going in your own right with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Find a way to maybe try to dominate possession here. Because the best defense against Christian McCaffrey is to keep him on the sideline. I mean, that's the easiest way to stop him. And I think for Detroit, they have proven this year they are not afraid of going into road environments. Remember, opening night, they went into Arrowhead and beat the defending Super Bowl champions on their home turf. And throughout this year, they have proven time and time again they are not scared of the road.
Yeah, and also all the pressure, all the responsibility are with the San Francisco 49ers. They are the team that has been getting to the situation more than ever in the last 5 years. And Detroit, it's all a celebration of first, playoff appearance in such a God knows when, first playoff win since 1991. So Detroit fans are just in a honeymoon phase. The San Francisco 49ers fans are over the honeymoon phase. They're like, hey, we want to go, they're into let's make this let's make this work. We want to see the real deal. San Francisco fans are like, we know we have a great coach, we know we have a great pieces, but this window of opportunity is going to shut down soon. So we, at least make to the Super Bowl.
Right. They want a championship. And San Francisco fans should expect a championship. So, as you said, all the pressure's on the 49ers. And I'm curious what the crowd's like. I thought the crowd in Santa Clara on Saturday night was pathetic. I know it was raining. I know Californians melt anytime it rains. But, guys, it's the playoffs. Show up. I mean, Buffalo fans were out there in 20-degree weather, and they were going nuts. Detroit?
But it's about engagement, 49ers fans, a lot of them in San Francisco would rather watch in San Francisco bars than drive all the way to Santa Clara.
That's very true. And I think that could play into Detroit's hands. Like, that's not a hard place to play. And I think a lot of Lions fans are going to show up. Lions fans have been traveling everywhere. And remember, Detroit, it just has a I can't say that word, diaspora is what it's called. Because of how the auto industry fell apart. There are Lions fans everywhere. So you're going to see a lot of baby blue in that stadium. So the Lions will have support in Santa Clara.
Yeah, and and tickets have been so expensive in Detroit, probably going to get cheaper for them in San Francisco.
Oh yeah, I would say so. Although granted, going there is not cheap, but in any case, I want to make picks after talking about the AFC because the Goliath matchup between Kansas City and Baltimore, man, you can't start talking about this game without starting with the quarterback matchup. Of course, Patrick Mahomes, 6 straight AFC title games. And then on the other side, making his debut in the AFC title, Lamar Jackson. I mean, just what does this game mean for both of them? I think this game has significance for both. Huge significance for both in terms of their legacies. I think for Lamar, this is I'm trying to be here. This is my moment. I'm the guy. I should be among the top 3 quarterbacks you mentioned, Mahomes and Lamar. That's what he's trying to get right here. Trying to get that respect, trying to get he is a running back playing quarterback stigma out of here. This is his time to do it. Meanwhile, on the other side, Mahomes, if he can engineer another road win after going to a hostile environment in Buffalo, it's going to be crazy in Baltimore on Sunday. Those fans of Baltimore are nuts. If they can go into M&B, whatever it's called, the stadium in Baltimore, if they can go into the Raven Stadium, beat them there, I think arguably he's ascending to Fret and GOAT status.
Yeah, I think Lamar is final. I mean, one of the first knocks that people had on him, like, oh, he shrinks in the playoffs. He's doing the exact opposite. He showed up strong against Houston, but now is probably a defining legacy moment. Going against Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning dynasty. It's kind of reminds me of the first AFC Championship that the Kansas City Chiefs went in this dynasty. They've had to face the current dynasty back then, the New England Patriots. They ended up losing, but I kind of compare like that.
It is pretty similar, right, for Baltimore. And I think, compared to that KC team, Baltimore's strength is not on offense. It's on defense. Baltimore's defense is just unreal. What they have done to team after team after team. And I called this a few weeks ago. Remember, it was about the middle of the season. I think it was after they beat the Chargers. And they, just shut them down on Sunday Night Football. I think I come on this show the very next day. I know at the very least, I had my group chat that night. I said, all the way back in early November, the Ravens are going to the Super Bowl. And I feel like I've said that on this show a couple of times over the past couple of months. So just because when you have a defense that good, I mean, they remind me of the Seattle Seahawks a little bit from about 10 years ago. I mean, that defense is just well constructed. They've got great players at every single level. And I think that could be just the difference.
Yeah. Can we go to picks?
Absolutely. So, Gus Tomazeli, who are you choosing to go to the Super Bowl?
I think it's going to be a classic matchup. Give me Baltimore Ravens and Detroit Lions, 2 blue-collar teams.
I actually agree with you completely. I think Baltimore's defense will do the job against Patrick Mahomes and that really subpar receiving core. I think that is the key. Can Mahomes find his receivers? Can he help the receivers have productive days? And of course, obviously Travis Kelce. And it's also interesting too, just on one note, there are people begging for Baltimore to win so they don't have to worry about Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl. Because that will be a crazy narrative for 2 weeks. If the Chiefs win and then Taylor Swift's at the Super Bowl.
I mean, Raven fans are like, if any officiating goes sideways or is there any controversial plays, God's gonna be talked.
Well,
Like,
Bills fans are already bringing that up. So, because I saw one dude try to suggest that like the NFL wants the Chiefs to win, so then Travis Kelsey and Taylor Swift can like start campaigning for Biden or something.
yeah, I saw that on Twitter. That's ludicrous.
Such an insane suggestion. Um, yeah, I'm actually agree. I think San Francisco. I just don't like the way they've been playing recently, and I think Detroit's completely loose. I like Detroit to win. And I think for Baltimore, I think Lamar, he's going to be able to run the ball effectively. And unlike Buffalo, Baltimore will continue running the football. And I think that will be the difference here. And I'll say this too. I think whoever wins KC and Baltimore wins the whole thing. I think the KC and Baltimore are the two best teams left in the playoffs. Whoever wins, I think, will win the Super Bowl comfortably. I'm going out
I think
three weeks out from yesterday. The Super Bowl is going to be a blowout.
I I don't think it's gonna be a blowout, but this Detroit team reminds me of the Bengals team back in 2021, 2022. A young, vibrant team who hadn't been in a playoff in a long time, made it, but came up short to an experienced, good, very good team. I think that's gonna be the story.
I think it's a pretty fair comparison. But we'll see who was right, and we'll recap these championship games next week, and we'll of course have our Super Bowl week kind of pseudo media week show in 2 weeks. That's going to be, as I always like Super Bowl week. It's always a cool week to kind of talk about the various matchups of that game. But in any case, we have NFL coaching searches. The Titans have hired their coach finally. The Bengals OC Brian Callahan will be the new head coach of the Titans. And my initial gut reaction here, good hire. I mean, he obviously helped develop Joe Burrow. He's been with Zach Taylor the entire time he's been in Cincinnati. And we've seen what Burrow has done in Cincinnati. I don't think Levis is on the level of Burrow, clearly. But Levis needs a guy like this to maybe spread out the offense, maybe get us into a more modern offense. I think this more than confirms that Derrick Henry will be gone because he's not going to fit in the Bengals style offense. And we're going to have a new look Titans. And I'm very curious to see what he does defensively. He needs a really good DC. Maybe one that's kind of similar to Variable to try to kind of continue some continuality on that side of the football. But otherwise, we'll see what happens. I'm okay with it.
What's funny about another team, choosing their coaches, the veteran coaches are being left out. I mean, Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll, still no jobs for them, just new head coaches.
Yeah, and like even Vrabel's only gotten one interview. Like maybe NFL teams are learning you shouldn't do retread hires.
Yeah, and it's a new era. I think what we experienced last week with the Nick Saban retirement and Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick, you know, stepping out and even uh, like a soft firing, is that one era ends, another one begins. I think this new era, they have. I put Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay are the faces of this era. Is you know head coaches are now young, vibrant, and you know most of it offensively minded.
Oh, for sure, and that's what the Titans needed to do because the offense has been abysmal for the last 2 years. We needed someone to come in and give in a fresh perspective on the on this offense and to make Tennessee football watchable again. So in any
Yeah,
case, I'm excited to see what Brian Callahan done. Also, in the news of head coaching, the Raiders decided to this time not make the same mistake twice. They are keeping their interim coach in Antonio Pierce, which Raiders fans seem to be very happy about. The ones I've talked to are very excited for this hire.
I guess. they Mark Davis finally learned his lesson.
Oh yeah, I think that you know, especially when you know decide to go for guys like Josh McDaniels, maybe this time you kind of just see what you have in house first.
Yeah.
So, in any case, we'll see what else happens in the NFL coaching carousel. I believe the Chargers are still interviewing folks. I know they've interviewed both Harbaugh and Vrabel over there in Los Angeles. Um,
How about the Falcons interviewing Bill Belichick?
yeah, they've interviewed Belichick, which they announced during the Tampa Bay game last week, which was weird. Um, Washington, they're looking at potentially Dan Quinn as their head coach, maybe. Um, of course, their
No.
28 to free fame. I just feel like that's a retread hire.
Yeah. And also, after his defense fell apart in Dallas, why?
Yeah, I don't really know what they're trying to accomplish with that coaching hire. I feel like
Yeah.
Washington could do better. So Washington, Atlanta still have to hire new coaches. Um, but in any cases, we'll see what they are able to figure out. Um, quick college football news here. Of course, we know Bama is still falling apart after the departure of Nick Saban and all the transfer portal news. Um, we saw Caleb Downs go to Ohio State, their star safety. I mean, holy cow. What news that was amongst 27 transfers from Alabama to other places across the country. Alabama, they may not be the Alabama we're used to next year. I still think they're going to be talented, but this isn't going to be the just dominant, just clearly better than everyone they play Alabama. This is an Alabama that now is mortal. And I hope
I mean,
a certain.
it looks like Kevin DeBoer is going to have to do a little bit of Deion Sanders, and they had to rebuild the team through transfer portal, I guess.
Yeah, and he won't be able to do that until after spring practice. So that's going to be a huge problem for him. But a beneficiary of the chaos in Tuscaloosa, the Volunteers. We are doing some good things with the recruiting trail right now. In the last 2 days, we've gotten a 5-star offensive lineman from LSU, Lance Hurd. He's going to probably be our starting left tackle next year. George McIntyre, a 5-star quarterback from Brentwood Academy in Nashville. So he'll be a linchpin of our class next year. And we got a defensive lineman from Stanford, Jackson Moore, who will provide us depth in the front seven. Which really just begs the question, that why are all these people saying Heupel can't recruit when he very clearly can?
Yeah, I think it's just the flashy names are only coming now, and I get Nico was a great recruit. Like, I don't know, maybe he's the as a good of a promoter of a recruit. Like, for example, Butch Jones knew how to sell, how good of a recruit he is.
Right. But like recruits want to go where they see results, and with Josh Heupel, they actually see results, especially if you're
No, no,
running
no.
offense.
What I'm saying is not like he knew how to sell the program. Butch Jones knew how to sell that he was getting good recruits.
Well, that's very true, but there's a difference between selling your program and selling good recruits.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Like
and I
Butch
think
Jones,
that, yeah, excuse me.
but
Um,
but Jones, but Jones was a snake oil salesman, and
right.
Judge Heupel is a true salesman.
Right. We have results. We've seen big time wins. And with Nico Imialava, I think you're going to see more of this. I think that's part of it, too. People just want to come play with Nico. People saw what he did against Iowa. Of course, we saw with our own eyes what he did against Iowa, the potential that he has as a 5-star quarterback. And guys want to play with guys like that. Elite talent only brings in more elite talent. So, I'm just more and more excited for Tennessee football. But we still have a whole 7 months we got to wait for that to roll back around. But fortunately, in the meantime, the basketballs are tearing it up. They're now number 5 again in the country after dominating the third Saturday in January. They beat Alabama's breaks off. They beat them by 20, forced 23 turnovers in this game. Just an incredible defensive performance against one of the best offenses in the country. The Ken Palm #1 ranked offense in Alabama. Of course, Nate Oates, they love either shooting threes or going straight to the bucket, nothing in between, very efficient. But they were not efficient Saturday due to Tennessee. Dalton Knecht really didn't have his best shooting game, but man, some of the dunks had me jumping off my couch. It was electric. And just, man, this Vols team right now is on fire. But that was at home. And I worry that it's only at home they play like this. This week, they only play one game. Now, the Big 12 SEC Challenge normally would be this time of year, but that no longer is happening. So instead, we don't have a midweek game this week. So we only play Saturday night at Vanderbilt.
Why there's no more Big 12 SEC matchups?
I don't know. I wonder if it has anything
That was
to do
so
with...
cool. That was something really cool that college basketball used to do.
Yeah, I feel like So I think the problem is...
Ironically, I'm reading on Sports Illustrated article. It says Big 12 SEC Challenge is coming to an end. And, all good things must come to an end. Because
Tennessee has some good matchups in that Big 12 SEC Challenge.
Yeah, because SC is set to move into a challenge with the ACC beginning next year in 2025. So I guess
it's partially about TV rights, and I'm sure the Big 12 was mad that we stole Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, I guess they was bitter about it.
Yeah, so ACC, SEC, though, will be lit. But still, it kind of sucks that we lost this game. But hey, a couple of extra days of rest can't hurt. And Vanderbilt's the worst team in the SEC. I think they'll take care of business, even at Memorial Gym, the stupidest basketball gymnasium in the country. Please put your opposing bench line on the actual sideline and not on the baseline. It's stupid, but we'll go in there and we'll dominate. So,
I mean, what do you expect from a school that has football games in a construction zone?
Yeah, that's a good point. Every sport at Vanderbilt outside of their baseball team is a tire fire. Speaking of their other sports, their women's basketball team lost to the Lady Vols, a team that has not been very good this year. But the Lady Vols did beat Miss State of Vandy this year. They're currently 5-1 in conference play, just 12-6 overall. But right now, currently next 4 out in women's bracketology. If they don't get some big wins soon, then they're going to be staring down the barrel of missing their first ever NCAA tournament. Huge rest of the season for Kelly Harper in the program.
Or I guess if she wins the SEC championship as well, he get it.
Not happening. They're not winning. They're not beating South Carolina and LSU, who play on Thursday. And also, too, speaking of just women's basketball real quick, Caitlin Clark kind of got into a little bit of an incident yesterday. So Ohio State upset Iowa, and they rushed the floor at Ohio State, and she was trying to get off the court, and the fan ran over her. So all the Iowa people are furious that their star player got basically ran over by a fan. Now, she's okay, but still, that's a pretty wild situation that can happen with these storming the courts situations, especially for women's basketball.
I like storming the court. I like storming the court or the field, but just wait the other team or basically the visiting team players to leave. Then you can have your party to yourself.
Right. Isn't it just weird to storm the court for women's basketball though?
But this is the Caitlin Clark effect. Is that when you beat the team that she's playing, the win gets bigger, like a men's basketball game. That's how big she is for the sport.
Yeah, I mean, it was a sold-out environment, and that was Iowa's first loss in conference play. Because unlike their football team, their women's basketball team actually knows how to score. So, in any case, I saw that headline. That was pretty nuts, but Iowa's still really good. They're still a Final Four contender. And there's a big game this week, South Carolina LSU on Thursday night, that's Haley Van Lith and Angel Reese, who've been having some issues this year, but they're still ranked number 10 versus the number 1 South Carolina Gamecocks. Pretty big game in women's basketball. Additionally, a men's basketball game I really want to watch Wednesday. It's the Iron Bowl of basketball in men's between Auburn and Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Auburn's undefeated right now in conference play, the only undefeated team in SEC play. They've been rolling over teams. Beat Ole Miss today by 30. And Alabama's coming back from being blown out by us. That should be an interesting game.
Yeah, Iron Ball is always Iron Ball. That rivalry. I know football is the biggest matchup, but they only happen once a year. So when they have it in other sports, it's still rivalry. Men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, softball is still a heated rivalry between Alabama, Crimson Tide, and the Auburn Tigers.
Oh, for sure. And the last thing that I want to mention to you is some soccer here, because the 2026 World Cup final, they have chosen A&T Stadium in Arlington for the finals because they just had to show that stadium what a championship looked like.
And I guess it makes sense because it's going to be in the middle of American summer, so dome kind of stadium where it is a controlled temperature. I think that's what FIFA wants, and probably Jerry Jones. It's finally gonna see trophy being held there. But I guess there was a Super Bowl there, so it's gonna be the second time somebody's gonna win a championship there.
And WrestleMania also was there one time, so. But that's not a real sport, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not disrespecting WWE fans, but Super Bowl and the World Cup are in another stratosphere.
Oh, absolutely. But for more soccer coverage, down in Brazil, what's going on? Because I know all the state championships are firing up.
Yeah, it's the opening weekend. Is the finally the season kicks in. I know a lot of people don't like state championships. For big media, it's not a good time because it basically is still feel like a preseason because of the huge disparity between the big teams, the rich teams, and the small teams that still makes the majority of the state championship. But for me, that lives in a small town that loves the kind of thing, that for me was a really great weekend. I covered 2 games, one in the second division, on the first division. A lot of state championships. Overall, Corinthians, Santos, and São Paulo got a wins. Palmeiras tied, but Palmeiras faced the hardest team, Novo Horizontino, who almost made it to the first division nationally. Uh, no, in the Rio, also Flamengo playing with their, you know, under 20 because Flamengo's actually in Tampa this weekend facing the Philadelphia Union in a friendly game. They won 2-0 in the Tampa Bay Rowdies game. And next week on Saturday, they're going to face off against Orlando City. Do you remember that game has been promoted while we were at Citrus Bowl? That's going to be this Saturday. Flamengo's going to play Orlando City in the city of Orlando at Exploria Stadium. But overall, still a slow start, but it still is exciting to see the season kick back. But the big story in January is the Copinha, the Brazilian March Madness version. Corinthians, who has been down at the youth out there, under 20 teams for a couple of years, made it back to the finals after I think the last time was like 2017. In front of their home fans, 40,000 fans at their stadium. They beat Novo Horizontino 3-0. And they're going to face off against Cruzeiro, who beat Flamengo 2-1. I mean, the finals was gonna be set in Pacaembu, a historical stadium, but the stadium is still under construction. So I believe the Paulista Federation is gonna pick Corinthians Stadium, Neoquímica Arena, because That's what they did when Palmeiras went to the final back in 2022. So I think Corinthians, I have a feeling they're gonna host the Copinha final in on Thursday night, and uh, that's Rio Branco is gonna debut on Saturday against Penapolense. I'm excited for that. The team is ready. We're gonna have our T-shirt. If we're gonna have an event to review our 2024 T-shirts. I was happy that Tiger Day, day the fans watching the open practice was a success, and excited for that season. And shout out again to you, Nicholas Hill, representing Rio Branco. I just shared at Rio Branco's Facebook page your post up on News 12, and very happy Rio Branco, making as far as Chattanooga, and hopefully we get a good start of the season on Saturday, a place that was very important for us last season.
Absolutely. Are they going to be back on YouTube again? That they were
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It's going to be broadcast
all right.
again at the Futebol Police, the YouTube channel, all the games. But this season, there's going to be something new. Rio Branco, it's Rio Branco social media pages itself are going to broadcast the games with me. So now I'm not going to be more on the radio side. I'm going to be at Rio Branco, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages broadcasting the game, something really fewer teams in Brazil do it. Only Santos, Corinthians, Sao Paulo, and Catanduva, of all teams from the state of São Paulo, does something like that. Like, in Rio, Flamengo, Fluminense, Botafogo, Vasco, all, does it. Like, it is going to be a trend, I feel like. I think in America, I think it's going to take some time, but it's going to catch up. Because sports teams right now, they can be their own media. Social media made that so possible. At the beginning of the show, we talk about how print media, is dead. How sports teams right now with social media have the ability to go direct to the fans. Now I'll be able to broadcast Real Bronco games for Real Bronco fans who are followers on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook.
I mean, yeah, like I know the UT athletic department, they have a podcast, Everything Orange, where they
Yeah.
have various athletes going out on doing the podcast. So, like, as you said, who needs sports journalists? Am I right?
Or maybe it's not about who needs sports journalists, or now you have to be more than one version of yourself. Like, I went from like commercial radio station to a sports team, but I'll still be able to do something that made me probably being seen by Rebecca, which is broadcast the game. But I think that again, I think sports teams route with social media and internet are cutting the middleman and getting straight to the fans, broadcasting their games, podcast, you name it.
Yeah, it's a brave new world we're entering.
Yeah, yeah, and hopefully Rio Branco gets a great debut on Saturday, which is going to be 4 p.m. Brazil time, 2 p.m. America time.
I'm excited to watch. Yeah, Tigre, or Vamos Tigre.
Vamos Tigre!
Absolutely. And on that note, I guess that's all we have for episode 114. Obviously, big football weekend coming up, the championship games. We're right here covering the end of the busiest time of American sports. There's always this time here it feels weird because it feels like we're winding back down to just a more normal pace. But hey, there's sports year round, and we're here to talk about sports year round. For Gus Tomazeli down in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, I'm Nick in Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States, and you're listening to the only podcast that talks about both American and Brazilian sports. This is two countries, two Americas, all sports. Have a good night.